What's up, the Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the conference tournament betting preview part 2. I'm Stuckey, and joining me today, my fellow BBOC co-host of the three-man weave, Jim Root. Today, we are going to cover the Summit, the NEC, the Big South, and the OVC. If you missed part 1, the guys from the three-man weave on Sunday night covered Horizon, Belt, and Patriot. To give you my picks for those, just people, the tournaments that have already started, I'm going North Alabama, Milwaukee, Bucknell, and Texas State. Those are my picks for those.
Texas State, he says, climbing the ladder in the Sun Belt.
I am. I'm getting. I don't. The Sun Belt is a wild league this year. We're going to talk about a wild league. I'm looking forward to talking to the OVC with you because that conference is a mess. But I'm looking forward to going through each of these 4 with you, Jim. Which one are you looking forward to talking about the most?
Summit. Summit's always fun. I just like the venue. It's not actually at the Pentagon. I get this confused every year. It's at a similarly named Sanford venue in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
But none of the teams play defense. They get up and down. There's a lot of scoring. And typically, you get some really good games. So Summit's the one I'm most looking forward to, but got a couple of good ones here.
Yeah, let's start in the Summit. It is in Sioux Falls, which is about an hour from both South Dakota and South Dakota State, I believe. And yeah, it's at the Sanford Center, which is the same name as where South Dakota plays. All 9 teams make it. UMKC, or Kansas City now, and Oral Roberts will play in the play-in game on Wednesday. The winner will play the surprise 1 seed Omaha. The 4-5 game is North Dakota State, South Dakota. 2-7 is St. Thomas. Denver, and 3 is South Dakota State, North Dakota. St. Thomas is ineligible for the NCAA tournament. So if they win it, it would be Omaha that goes, which I guess is noteworthy because St. Thomas is one of the favorites and Omaha is one of the favorites up top. So if they both make it, Omaha, I'm sure they still want to win a conference tournament, but it's worth noting that if it is Omaha versus St. Thomas, Omaha will already know they're in the NCAA tournament. So even though Omaha is the 1 seed, they're plus 550. Market hasn't believed in Omaha all year. St. Thomas plus, going on FanDuel lines right now, St. Thomas plus 270. South Dakota State, the 3 seed, is the favorite at plus 220. North Dakota State's right there with them, plus 220. And then you have your long shot, South Dakota 32-1, North Dakota 42-1, Denver 80-1, UMKC 29-1, Oral Roberts 250-1. I can tell you the market loves North Dakota State. They love North Dakota State, hate Omaha. That's because North Dakota State, who, by the way, you mentioned, it's an offensive league. There's no defense, and these teams, don't bet them. I mean, you can. We'll see where the lines are. But in the tournament, they stink. Yes. Someone will fall in love with it, but they never pull upsets. They don't profile as a team that can because they don't play any defense. There are some really good players and some really good offenses. There's no defense. The 2 exceptions are Kansas City, which is all defense and horrendous offense. And then Denver, who I actually show value in Denver to win this league at 80-1. I make them like 45-1. And it's mainly because they've been so good of late. They've been the 4th best team per Torvik over the past 10 games. And there's no 3-point luck driven. They figured out life after Bruner, who was their stud last year. And they didn't have Craig for a few games, their best guard. And they have a legit defense. They have 2 7-footers that they didn't have for most of the year that are now playing. Their offense is ugly. I mean, it's just a bunch of mid-range shots. They turn it over. But their defense is real. 80-1 seems a little wild to me. But then again, Denver away from home, are they really going to make a run? I don't know. What sticks out to you most when you first look at this bracket?
I want to ask a quick question first. If it is St. Thomas over Omaha in the title game, do they go to opposite ends of the court and each cut down a net? Like, how does that work?
Didn't that happen? Did it happen before?
I think so, where somebody was clinched, and I don't remember exactly what they did. If it was like maybe the A-Sun might have had that one year where somebody was ineligible, like Bellarmine,
Bellarmine, I think. Yeah.
and then obviously when Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue, they did not win the tournament. That was actually Merrimack that won it. But yeah, that would be a very entertaining outcome. Yeah, looking at this, you mentioned the market loves North Dakota State, and I think people that just kind of loosely look at this league love North Dakota State because they take the most threes in the country. They make a ton of them, but they lost 6 games in a double round robin. Like, they're not the best team. I'm surprised they're atop the odds there, and I think that's partially because Omaha's people are skeptical of them. My first instinct was, okay, best player in this conference, most dominant player is Oscar Clough, the monster big man for South Dakota State. But they just lost their point guard, Owen Larson, to a torn ACL, and they dropped one by 16 to end the season against your Denver Pioneers. So I'm a little lower on South Dakota State. To even zero in further on Denver, over the last 5 games, they're the number 1 team in the Summit. They're number 10 in the entire country in 2-point percentage defense. Like, they've really figured out that end of the floor. But I like St. Thomas, Stuckey. I think the fact that, everybody's playing for a postseason berth, so it's maybe not an extra incentive for St. Thomas to win this, but the fact that they're ineligible, this is really their Super Bowl, and they're super well coached. Johnny Towers done a great job elevating them in 4 short years from Division 3. Like, they skipped Division 2, and they've accumulated enough athletes now, enough shooting, enough skill to compete in this league. And although they have that first round matchup with Denver, who I agree is a little undervalued, I think St. Thomas gets to that title game, and if it's against Omaha, then we've got that really fun semi-meaningless game.
Yeah, it's with Denver. They didn't have Isaiah Carr for like 20 games, and then their other 7-footer they didn't have for like 20 games too. And they both have been available for the past 5. That coincides with their 2-point defense. I will say I show a little value on Omaha. I make them like 4.2 to 1, and you can get like plus 550 out there. They just don't get any respect. I didn't respect them early in the year. They were running really well from 3, but they ended up shooting over 40% from 3 in league play. Like, I have to start to believe it. Looking at like their pass splits, it's probably, I don't know. There might still be some looming regression. The D is shaky, but they're good on the defensive glass. They've been a great road team in league play. They shot 41% from 3 on the road. Sutton is a stud. He's just a go-to guy that can get you a bucket whenever you need it. So I don't know. I think as the 1 seed, I don't think Omaha's getting enough respect. St. Thomas, they are great, well-balanced offense, elite spacing, as you mentioned, great shot makers, but the defense is shaky. They can't rebound. They still lack some size and athleticism, and do I really trust their offense away from home at plus 270? I can't get there. And you mentioned South Dakota State. I'm not there at plus 220. Oscar Clough's a monster down low. He's the best player in the league. But this team was not good on the road. You mentioned they lost Larson. They are great rebounders, but they're probably going to lose the turnover battle. And they have a super inexperienced backcourt, just like a bunch of freshmen, which is why I think their numbers aren't as good on the road. And they didn't finish the season strong, 344th in momentum per Haslam metrics. They were the 6th best offense in the league in road games, the best at home. And their defense is much worse away from home as well. They give up a ton of threes, so they can just they can't stay in front of anyone. So they're just compact defense, and then they could get shot out of the gym. They split with North Dakota for what it's worth. Going down the line, North Dakota State at plus 220, you mentioned it. But what we didn't mention is Jackson Money, who's a 6'10 unicorn. You look back over the past 25 years in college basketball, you're not going to find a guy that's 6'10 or taller with his assist rate and his 3 points made per game. Complete unicorn, great passer, great vision, can do it all. And then there's just 3-point shooters all around him. He missed the final 2 games with a wrist injury. I don't know what his status is. I'm assuming it was like precautionary and he'll be fine, but maybe he's not. That's something worth noting. And they were the league's best road team. Omaha was the 2nd best. Part of that is because they shot 41% from 3. And they shoot threes at the highest rate in the country. And that's kind of what they shoot. I mean, there's a top. It's very rare when you see a team top 5 in the country in 3-point attempt rate and top 5 in 3-point makes. Their defense is non-existent though, for what it's worth. South Dakota, they want to play super fast. They don't turn it over, get to the line a ton, try to force turnovers on defense, defend the 3 well, but nothing else. Teams can crush them on the offensive glass and at the rim. North Dakota, they want to get to the rim, but they're inefficient there. They have some wings who can go off, but the defense is unspeakably bad. They had 1 league win away from home, and that was at Denver when the Pios they were reeling, and they were without Craig and their bigs. North Dakota's decent on the glass. And then mentioned Denver, UMKC, they're 29-1 as the 8 seed, which I can't get to. But I think part of that is they were very unlucky all year. Like they lost so many close games. But their offense is really bad outside of Brown and then just offensive rebounding. They're just a really physical team. I think they missed Kopp offensively.
Yes.
Like they just needed someone else to help them out. But their defense is the best in the league. For what it's worth, they're 0-8 in the road, and they got blown out by Omaha in both meetings, which isn't great. And then Oral Roberts is just bad. I mean, McBride and Moore are good offensive players, but there's not much there. And they'll shoot a ton of threes, get to the line a ton. They won't get any stops, 0-8 on the road. So yeah, there's something about this Omaha team this year. Like you saw, they beat up trash cans after games.
The vibes are great around that team.
Yeah, and they're the 1 seed plus 550. I took a little Omaha, even though I wasn't a believer in them all year, which means they're going to lose to Kansas City in just a grinder. But they're one of the more physical teams in the league. And then I sprinkled just some couch change on Denver. What are your final thoughts here?
I respect doing a little couch change there. I would say Omaha is maybe strong for betting value with the price they're at. And again, we're not huge believers in North Dakota State. They're just really high variance. And so maybe they'd be somebody that could give a power conference team a fight in the NCAA tournament if they got super hot from 3. But in this event, not a huge fan of them. In our
and high variance team with no defense, and they're the favorite. Like, no thanks.
Yeah. In the conference tournament pool, Omaha is probably not the pick if they're the 4th best odds, but only the 1 seed, the one we kind of dabble in that are helping run. So not as much value there. But yeah, from a betting standpoint, I think the Omaha thing makes sense. They've been much better in league play. If you take out the non-conference performance, they're one of the top 2 teams in this conference. They're top 2 since February 1st, so they're playing well going in. I think it does make sense there, given the path, given how well they're playing, and the injuries potentially to North Dakota State and South Dakota State.
Yep. Yeah, injuries definitely worth noting. All right, let's move on to the NEC tournament. This will be played. All 8 of 9 teams make it. I don't understand the NEC because Mercyhurst was not eligible, but Lemoyne is. But like they changed their rules for the 3rd year in a row. So like it was prospective, not retrospective, which means that Mercyhurst, which would have been like the 3 seed, I think, isn't eligible, but Lemoyne is. But Lemoyne's not eligible. What's that?
Yeah, Stonehill too. They're in it, but can't make the tournament. So 6 of the 8, only 6 of the 8 can make the big dance.
Correct. And Central Connecticut State will make the dance if either Lemoyne or Stonehill make it. It's this is campus sites, so Central Connecticut will have home court advantage throughout, so to speak, if they continue to win. They have the longest active winning streak in the country at 12. Their only losses, both were at home. They lost to Wagner and Long Island in league play. They have a top. This is the best team by far. I mean, there's a reason they're minus 210 to win it. Like the rest of this league is really bad. Long Island's defense is very good, but their offense is horrid. They want to win the game like 50-48, which is what I think they beat Central Connecticut State. That might have been the score, like 52-50 or something. They just take inefficient mid-range shots. They just want to play slow, rely on their defense. I kind of wanted Long Island. I thought Central Connecticut State would be overvalued, but I wanted like 5-1, which it's not out there. Long Island's plus 340. So, I think that this last year I famously hit Wagner 30-1. I'm not. They're worse this year, and you're getting a worse price, and they're less of a high variance team. I mean, their offense. I can't watch their offense, and they lost like 2 key cogs from last year's team. They lost Allen and
Councils at St.
who else?
Bonaventure.
And Julian Brown are no longer there, and they didn't really replace them. Like their offense is bad. I can't get there with Wagner. Unspeakably bad offense. I can't watch them. They'll press, they'll zone. They're good rebounders. They'll play slow. That's the high variance is like they'll try to grind the game down. But they have the worst 2-point offense in the country, arguably, and it's just not the same as last year. I can't get there with Wagner. Just going through the long shot, Chicago State's 7. They're bad at everything. They have the worst offense in the league, I would say. They're 1-18 on the road. They're going to play Long Island. They scored. I think they beat Long Island somehow, but they scored 39 at LIU in the first meeting. No, Chicago State's not winning this.
That's a weird matchup because it's the Chicago State coach went to be an assistant at LIU, so he brought like a couple players, and I think one LIU guy transferred to Chicago State. It's this weird kind of intermixing of those two teams, but yeah, LIU now has the good coach and is much better. I could see Chicago State scoring like 45 points in that game. Yeah,
Chicago State oddly almost beat St. Francis on Saturday, even though they benched everybody. Like I assume they were just resting everybody, but a bunch of their kids didn't play. And then there was one of the worst beats of the year. They were like up the whole game, plus catching 8.5, lost by 9 in overtime. Lemoyne is 65-1 as the 8 seed. Yeah, they have a decent offense. I mean, this league is like slow paced, bad offenses. That's what you can just the overarching theme. Lemoyne has a decent offense, the number 2 offense in league play, number 1 in effective field goal percentage. They did lose Carmody, I think the Notre Dame transfer, to an injury. They have the worst defense in the country, in my opinion. They can't stop anybody. They'll be massive dogs at Central Connecticut. No thanks. So that's and then Stonehill. So we'll start at the bottom. Stonehill, they want to play slow. They take away the 3. They shoot the 3 a ton. D is bad. O is like mid for an NEC team. This year, I can't get there with any of the 5 through 8 seeds. Anything you want to mention there? Or any intrigue you?
No. This one's really top heavy. I mean, Central Connecticut's been the best team all year. They're 110 spots in KenPom ahead of the number 2 team in the league. Like they have really separated as part of that 12-game winning streak. They're number 1 on offense, number 2 on defense in the league. They kind of do it on both ends. It's tough to figure out an underdog to really invest in here. Especially with 2 of them not really having the end game of making the NCAA tournament. That hurts. And I haven't really been a believer in Fairleigh Dickinson all year either. That's kind of the one team you didn't touch on as much, but they might have the best player, the best scorer in the league in Terrence Brown, but they don't have anything really beyond him offensively, and defensively it's not like a lockdown unit. So not much intrigue in the Knights, the famous Cinderella from 2 years ago. This one, man, I have a hard time backing anybody but Central Connecticut. They're just that far ahead, and where their odds are at, maybe you don't want to lay it. Maybe you want to parlay them with a favorite in another conference, but that would certainly be my lean.
Yeah, mentioned Long Island. I mean, St. Francis, they have the best 2-point offense in the league with Cranford and Pineda, but it's interesting that they play Wagner in the first meeting. They got swept by Wagner, but each by 2 in but I think both were in overtime, or one was in double overtime and the other one was in regulation. They played 2 overtimes, I know that, but Wagner won both by 2. It's not a great matchup for St. Francis because St. Francis is bad versus the press, and they're bad against the mid-range. 353rd in the country. Well, Wagner presses, and that's all they do is shoot mid-range jumpers. Top 20 in mid-range attempt rate. So not a great matchup for St. Francis, just as far as if you're looking at first-round matchups. FDU, you mentioned, they're kind of one of the exceptions in that they want to play fast. They do have some 3-point variance in them, but I agree. I'm not a believer in FDU. I can't get there with LIU. I wanted 5-1. I just can't trust their offense. So, yeah, I think this is a chalky year for the NEC. And I hope it's Central Connecticut State because just for the viewing pleasure of the tournament, because they're the only team that could at least be – I was watching the end of Central Connecticut State Wagner on Saturday. I was watching the end of that game. By the way, Central Connecticut, I'm convinced they covered. They dunked it, but the horn went off. They were up like 6. The horn went off like when the ball was still in his hand, but the clock, I went back, I watched this a bunch. No one gave a shit. I was one of 4 people watching this. The announcer said no one will want to see Central Connecticut State when the bracket comes out. I'm sure Florida will be okay with getting Central Connecticut State. But
yeah,
they like pushed Providence. They won at St. Joe's. So this team has some juice. They have a top 100 defense. Jordan Jones is a good point guard. The rest of this league is just bad, or just they're complete. There's like they have one side of the ball is completely flawed.
Anybody but Central Connecticut will be in a playing game, like a 16 seed playing game. That they're the only team that can get above that level.
Yeah. All right. So official pick is chalk here. I'm going with Central Connecticut State.
Yep. Also, and that's also probably who I would bet even at the prices.
Yeah, my fair's minus 195. So I can't really bet minus 210, but I can't bet it. I can't make a case for anyone else. Sadly, I don't see a Wagner this year. No. But I might bet Wagner against St. Francis. All right. For what it's worth, Wagner won the first 2. You're going to hear a lot. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, which isn't true. No. It's easier to beat a team 3 times than it is to not. And the reason is simple. There is there's nuance to it. Don't just follow all this blindly. Like sometimes if you look back, team lost 2 meetings. Maybe there was injuries. Maybe there was just really bad 3-point shooting luck. But many times it's just because it's probably a bad matchup for a reason. Like I just mentioned Wagner and St. Francis. St. Francis bad against the press, bad against mid-range. Like there's a reason you probably lost the first 2 games. Do you have any thoughts there on that? It's hard to beat a team 3 times that we'll hear a bunch.
Yeah, no, I don't buy it at all. And I mean, you that's the kind of thing you'd have to adjust for, like the likelihood they beat him a 3rd time, like the win probability of it. And that's always taken out of factor. They're like, oh, the team only wins 70% the 3rd time. It's like, well, yeah, should they be winning 80% or should they be winning 60%? What's the actual adjustment factor? So I don't put really any stock into it. And I'm with you. It's more typically indicative of a bad matchup or a plain easily better team than it is like a due factor for the team that lost the first 2.
Yeah, no one ever adjusted because like obviously if whoever Duke plays the 3rd time, they're going to beat them the 3rd time because they're so much better. And then so there's a lot of nuance in there. That's just one of those things that's been said for like 30 years. Someone just said it once on like ESPN. Like Dick Vitale probably said it in 1998, and then it just caught on.
Yep.
And then everyone just says it. All right. Let's move to the Big South tournament, which is in Johnson City, Tennessee. Why is this in Johnson City, Tennessee?
I have no idea why they're going to a SoCon campus area, Johnson City, where East Tennessee State is, and playing their tournament. Last year was at High Point, their like brand new arena, and I think got a pretty good crowd. And now they mixed it up. I'm not entirely sure why.
I guess this helps the rest of the league because High Point's the best team. So if it was at High Point again, they'd be even a bigger favorite. But they're a significant favorite. They're minus 250 to win this league. So even a bigger favorite than Central Connecticut State. Their offense is unbelievable. I think a lot of the analytics sites, they're top 25 offense nationally. Is that right, Jim?
Yeah. 25th at Ken Palm, top 30 at Bart Torvik. It's crazy. They're deep.
Their backcourt is great. Although Damarian Williams, like they have a lot of guys. Even who's their other point guard?
Keza Jiffa.
No, but the other their backup, like Petway or
Pettiford, the Kansas transfer.
Pettiford, like Carolina. Even he can go off like on certain days. Like they have a lot of depth, but Williams is a good player. He's not great defensively, but he's a great offensive player. He missed the past couple games. Do you know his status?
I don't, and it does matter. It's tough, but they are like. It's hard to emphasize how deep they are. Like, there's a chance there if you took out their 4 best players, they'd still be the best player or best team in the league because they have a ton of depth. I mean, Williams was a double-digit scorer at Gardner-Webb in this conference 2 years ago. Went to Texas A&M for 2 years and then came back and is really good again. But So I want him out there for the peak version of High Point, but they're still heavy favorite even without him.
Yeah, their offense is just incredible. They have so many shot makers, so many guys can get to the rim. They play drop on defense with Bodo, who anchors that. Although their defense, I think, will probably it'll be an interesting team if they make the tournament because their defense has holes. Like they foul too much and don't force turnovers, which is always a troubling
Yes.
combination. So their defense is gettable, and you saw that in the two meetings against the 2 seed UNC Asheville. Wild games between those two. UNC Asheville's D is really poor when they're not forcing turnovers. They'll press. They also foul a lot. They'll get crushed on the offensive glass. Marsh is a good point guard. He shredded High Point both times. And, you have a guy like AB who could shoot the lights out. Solomon's solid. They do lack depth, which is maybe troubling for this format. And they have to make up for their rebound deficit with turnover margin. But they have a lot. They have a lot of guys who can excel in the mid range, which is what you need to do against High Point's defense. So they put up their games. It was like 103-99 and 103 and like 103
104 100 in OT. Yeah, so like 3 of the 4 teams hit 100 in their 2 matchups.
Yeah, so UNC Asheville 9-1. You have 3 teams that are in this 9-1 range. UNC Asheville, Winthrop, they're 9-1. They're the 3 seed. Fast. They want to go fast. Talford and Harrison are good players. They want to get. We just talked about beating 3 times. How it's easier than some people might lead you to believe. They play Longwood in the first round. I'm hoping that's close to a pick. I don't know. But Winthrop crushed Longwood
twice, just murdered
both meetings. And the reason why, Winthrop, second near proximity attempt rate. They want to get to the rim at all costs. Longwood, 364th in near proximity percentage defense. They're the worst 2-point defense in the country. These two teams also headed in complete opposite directions. Longwood was benefited from some 3-point shooting luck for a while. Winthrop finished 8-1. Their only loss to High Point. Longwood finished 2-7. And like if you look at Winthrop wants to run, 94th percentile transition rate. Longwood transition D is horrendous. And I think Winthrop got unlucky with their 3-point defense during league play, and Longwood still overall, I think, got a bit lucky. The only thing that gives me pause is it's fucking Longwood in this tournament. And I think they beat Winthrop 2 of the last 3 years, and they've won it 2 of the past 3 years. Aldrich usually just gets them playing their best basketball in this format. So let's but before I get your thoughts, Radford's the 4 seed. They're also around 9-1. Analytically, I think they're the second best team. Macklin and Moss, good players on the wings. They are the opposite of Winthrop, and they want to play super slow. They're shooting like 40% from 3 since January 1st. I'm not sure that's really sustainable. It's worth noting, most of that damage is done at home. They do not miss from 3 at home. I think they shot 42.5% from 3 at home in league play. Not going to get to play at home in this format. They do get to the line a ton, and they don't miss there. They're good on the offensive rebound. In the offensive rebounding department, not strong scoring at the rim. Really compact defense. Throw in some zone in there. But they want to play really slow, grind teams down. The opposite of Winthrop, which wants to play fast.
They've got one of the injury concerns where we don't know if it was rest or not. It was Macklin sat their last game.
Yeah,
and good luck finding Big South inside intel, but their peak version certainly has him in there. So keep an eye on that.
I would assume he rested, but we don't know for sure.
Yep.
So we both agree that High Point is clearly the best team, but among those, before we get to the bottom half, among UNCA, which has defensive issues, Winthrop, and Radford, which one of and they're all in the same price range. They're all right around 9-1. If you were to make a case for any one of those 3, who would it be?
I'll make a case for Winthrop. I took a little 9.5 to 1, just because of how well they played down the stretch. They did split with Asheville, the 2 seed, so right there on their side of the bracket. Each team won at home. similar-ish margins. I don't think there's any like major matchup, like insurmountable differences there. But they've got a lot of veterans, guys that came back for their 5th year. I think that matters a little bit. And Asheville, last year they were like all built around Drew Pember, the giant monster in the paint, one of the best mid-major players in the entire country. And now they don't really have that, and they lost 4 of their final 7. I think teams started to figure them out a little bit. And so I definitely prefer Winthrop there because of the trajectories of the two. And then Radford, I just don't want a team on the side of the bracket of High Point. If I'm going to take a shot at similar odds among all 3 of them, give me one of the ones on the opposite side of the bracket in Winthrop or Asheville, just to avoid having to play them in the semis. So yeah, Winthrop is definitely my choice of those 3.
I agree with you. I think that's the look as well. Winthrop, for what it's worth, they played. I mean, I think they got crushed by, if I recall, let me look it up.
Yeah, they lost both games.
They
by
got
20 to High Point.
destroyed by High Point in both meetings. Let's see.
Asheville's got a better chance at High Point, but I think Winthrop's better than Asheville, which is a weird, kind of rock, paper, scissors type thing.
Yeah. And I do like the first round matchup against Longwood, who also is reeling. So I like Winthrop's path. And the problem is, man, High Point's really good and they don't really match up that well. But I agree. I think it's Winthrop out of those 3. In the bottom of this bracket, you have Presbyterian 46-1. They're playing better of late. They play super slow. They need to win the turnover battle. They're bad on the boards. They can't defend at the rim. Their offense is it's kind of ugly to watch. A lot of isolation mid-range. They'll press to slow teams down, force turnovers. So you got to be able to handle their pressure. Then Longwood, already mentioned them. Their D, like it's so bad. It's broken.
They did not replace Zapala, the big man who went to Michigan State. They just didn't get any size, and now it's so easy to score at the rim.
Yeah, so I can't trust them. Charleston Southern 130-1. They infamously or famously won at Miami. It shows you how bad Miami was this year. They won at Miami earlier this year. Their point guard, RJ Johnson, is he hurt?
He the same. Yeah, he was kind of banged up late in the year.
Yeah,
so I think that was a full-on rest. Like he played terrible the game before, and only played 20 minutes. I think it was a rest thing, but
he also might be dealing with an injury. And they do not have a backup point guard. Their backup point guard is bad, so the drop off is very big. The problem is they take away the 3. They'll get destroyed in the mid range by Asheville, who will happily live there. I can't get behind Charleston Southern making a run here. Gardner Webb, they want to play. They're the running Bulldogs. They want to play fast, but they're kind of inefficient doing so. They can't shoot. They're good on the glass, getting to the line. They want to attack the rim. They'll mix in some zone on defense. Boy Ogueno didn't play the last 2. He's important to them. I think he's their second best player. But their D is bad, and they have major turnover issues. Their point guard play is very, very shaky. I expected more of Gardner Webb this year, but yeah, they're in the playing game for a reason, and they're playing South Carolina Upstate, who Mr. Dean is fun to watch. That's all I can really say positively for the Spartans. They are the worst team in the league, and they play super fast. It's not a good combination. Not many positive things to say about South Carolina Upstate. So let's start. Let's start at the top of that bottom half. Anything on Presbyterian or we already mentioned Longwood. Anything on Presbyterian? Who's playing better of late?
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by them. You do increase the variance a little bit with their pace, and Radford plays super slow too. So you're going to get this crawling game where it's probably going to be tough for either team to really separate. That gives me some intrigue. They did split meetings this year. Both teams actually lost at home. So I don't know what that really tells you. I think it just tells you they're pretty evenly matched. 63 possessions and 58 possessions, but both teams scored efficiently because their defenses aren't all that strong. I think that one's kind of a coin flip, and really another reason to avoid Radford at the odds that they're at with kind of a tough slow down matchup to start, and then High Point on deck. That's not one I'd like to look at. Presbyterian, I think, would be a decent first round bet.
I agree. And then Charleston Southern,
No,
nothing.
thank
right?
you.
And then the 8-9 game, Gardner Webb, SC Upstate. Do you have anything to say on either of these teams?
I could maybe buy the underdog there because Dean's probably going to be the best player on the floor, but there is a little risk too because I think heavy rumors he may end up in the portal, and is he a half foot out the door already? I don't know. And Gardner Webb has talent. Like, they brought a couple guys back this offseason that were boomerangs. Jermaine Mann went to Vanderbilt and Georgia State and came back to Gardner Webb where he started. And then Anthony Selden, Wayne Selden's little brother of Kansas fame, had gone to Rice for a year and came back to Gardner Webb. So, like, there's talent on that roster. It just has not come together. So I would be more inclined to back Gardner Webb, kind of re-elevating to the preseason expectations we had for him.
They turn it over so much, man. Their point guard play is bad. And they really struggled to end the year. But yeah, there's some truth to that you get to these conference tournaments, revert back to, you could do worse things than reverting back to preseason priors if you're looking to find some long shots in this format.
I'd say either of those teams is going to lose by 30 plus to High Point.
Yeah, I mean, USC Upstate would. I'm surprised High Point didn't get to 100 on them.
No, they did one of them, but those games were actually only within 10, surprisingly.
And I believe Gardner Webb got destroyed. Yeah, Gardner Webb lost High Point 96-55 and 90-67.
Yeah, it's not great.
So, not great. What else should I mention? Yeah, the Radford Presbyterian. I mean, Radford has good numbers against the press, which they're going to see against Presbyterian, but they can't score at the rim, which is where Presbyterian's like most vulnerable. So, yeah, and by the way, Radford does not match up well with High Point. So I can't see Radford beating High Point, which is one reason why I just crossed them off. Another reason why they're not only in the same half as High Point, I just don't like the matchup with them, and they could lose to Presbyterian. Mentioned Winthrop beat Longwood both times, destroyed them. And in UNC, Asheville, Charleston Southern, Asheville won by 3 and 8. So those games were actually fairly close in the regular season. Official pick here. Are you going chalk with High Point?
Yep, unfortunately. I think that'd be the most fun for the NCAA tournament anyways.
I agree. And I think if you're looking to sprinkle, I think that the look is Winthrop.
Yeah. So I actually did the double dip of I have a little bit of the sprinkle in Winthrop, and I also parlayed High Point and Central Connecticut State to go back to the NEC. So a couple favorites there.
Okay. Like it. All right, let's finish up with the OVC, which is this league is a mess. It's so funny looking at the OVC how different it looks now than it used to.
Come a long way from I can't wait for Belmont versus Murray State title game Saturday night. That was pretty much inevitable, and that is not what we get anymore.
Yeah, this league looks much different. It'll still be played in Evansville. Top 8 made it. Lindenwood made it, but they're ineligible for the tournament. So if they win this, then SEMO would go. And if you're if you want to know about this league, bad, inefficient offense, bad, ugly offense across the board. Yeah, it's ugly. I think let's see. They are, let me pull up KenPom. 31st in effective field goal percentage, 29th in efficiency, 25th in turnover percentage. You're just going to see lots of ugly free throws, turnover, ugly offense, a lot of inefficient mid-range offense. Yes. It's gross. Any thoughts, high-level thoughts on the OVC?
It was kind of a league that game to game, I mostly stopped betting for the late parts of the season. And just because it was pretty tough to evaluate who is actually still trying. Like the end of the year, Eastern Illinois was eliminated from postseason competition, and they rattled off like 4 straight wins against teams that still had stuff to play for. It's like I don't know how to assess that. So that was tough to figure out. I mean, SEMO won this 2 years ago with Brad Korn at the helm, and then they were terrible last year, like horrific offensively, bounced right back this year and won the regular season by multiple games. So he's at least got the winning pedigree in it, but I don't think they're the most talented team, and they don't have the best player. Like those are 2 other teams in the OVC, which makes this tricky. Like SIUE has the best player, Little Rock's the most athletic, probably the most talented team. It's a tough one to crack here, Stuckey. I'm curious what direction you're looking.
Yeah, I mean, SEMO plus 160. No thanks.
No,
like
no, thank you.
There's no value in that number. They'll play drop on defense. They're inefficient offense. Like they're just going to shoot a lot of bad shots. I can't trust them. SIUE plus 240. Again, no thank you. Can't get there at that price. Decent rim defense. You're betting on the Taylors here on offense, and then Little Rock. You mentioned Little Rock. Little Rock has the best defense in the league. Their defense is really good, with Gatkek and Wilkinson leading the way. But their offense is. You guys are doing 3-Man Weave is doing a live show, and you were touting Little Rock. I said I cannot bet on that offense. That offense is a tough watch.
Yeah, it was built to have KK Robinson running the show, and he's missed the entire year with injury. And they just didn't have another like point guard playmaker creator to stir the drink, and it's showed. A quick mention on the prices. I don't know if we said this yet, but SEMO and SIUE are in the semis already, which is part of why they have that value.
Fair.
But
double buys to the semis.
Yep, and then Little Rock and Tennessee State are sitting there in the quarters, but still don't love that price on either, or especially on SEMO. I don't love that price.
Yep. The one that intrigues me the most is probably Tennessee State at close to 5-1. I mean, maybe it's mainly just the price. I mean, they're the best team in the league since January 1st per Torvik. Is Brandon Weston back?
That's what I want to know.
He's been questionable for like 3 weeks. I search his name before every game. It just says Brandon Weston is questionable. Like, has he been waiting to come back for this? Because he matters.
He might be the best player in the league when he's healthy. Like he's completely above talent wise what the rest of this league is. So if he plays, it's a major swing.
And they're number 1 in Torvik and haven't had him. How many games has he missed?
8.
And he's missed 8 games.
7. Sorry, excuse me, bad counting.
So, and they're still they're the best team since January 1st. I know SEMO got hot down the stretch, but Tennessee State, they're with Weston. I think they're the most talented team. They play super fast. They're great on the offensive glass. They get to the line a ton. They do turn it over way too much. That's the one thing that I am concerned about with Tennessee State. Like they just give away the ball. But a lot of teams do that in this league. So if I can find out Weston's playing, I'm definitely betting. Well, hopefully get ahead of the mark. I'm definitely betting Tennessee State at plus 480. I just can't get there on the prices of SEMO and SIUE, and I can't trust the Little Rock offense at a worse price than Tennessee State. Is that so? What are your thoughts on Tennessee State? Like if Weston plays, they're the look.
Yeah, they're super high upside. I would be a little intrigued by SIUE having to win one less game if Weston's out. So maybe my betting is like contingent in this conference. We're recording this on a Monday. Those 2 teams won't play till like at least Tennessee State plays Thursday. SIUE would then play them Friday in the semis. So kind of have to wait and see on that. But that would be the major swing for me. If Weston's in there, yes, agreed. Tennessee State is the value. If not, then I would look elsewhere. An odd thing with Tennessee State is they get to the line a ton and foul a ton. So it's a lot of like free throw contest, and they're not that good at the line, which is a weird combination to have. But Weston's their best free throw shooter. So again, if he's in, it really changes their outlook.
Yeah. Yeah, if you see it come in, they haven't been. Collins has not been good in this tournament. I'm looking back at their results. Have they ever made a run? They've never made one single run.
No, they have not.
I mean, their last they've had some bad teams.
And he's done okay in the portal, so the talent has kind of been there, but just postseason tournament setting has not really agreed with them. And maybe it's because they want to get up and down, and this league is a lot more defensive. They're the fastest team in the league, so might just not play up in that setting.
Yeah, that does worry me a bit as well. And then you have like the other thing is, which is it's worth noting that if Weston does come back, they're going to play, as you mentioned, on Thursday, and they'll play the winner of Lindenwood Moorhead. Like it would be like his first game back. Like you got to assimilate him into the offense. Is there rust? Like then you've missed all this time, and then you got to play 3 games in 3 days. Is there fatigue? So that's worth mentioning as well. Looking at the bottom half of this league, you have Tennessee Tech. Just they don't really. I can't really figure Tennessee Tech out. I mean, here's an interesting thing: Tennessee Tech is 55-1, and Tennessee Martin, the 8 seed, is 30-1. Which I don't understand. They play each other in the first round. Tennessee Tech swept them, and both games went to overtime. But like that's a coin flip game. Why is Tennessee Martin half the prices of Tennessee Tech?
Yeah, that one doesn't really add up. Just going through like the numbers, like it's going to be basically a pick 'em game. They should be almost the same odds, not basically double.
I was like double, triple checking injuries. I was like, so I don't understand that. Tennessee Tech will play Tennessee Martin. As I mentioned, Tennessee Tech swept both meetings. They both went to overtime. Tennessee Tech shoot a bunch of threes. They take away the 3. They get no offensive rebounds. Tennessee Martin, they also shoot a ton of threes, but they give up a bunch. They're great on the offensive glass. They turn it over too much.
Yeah. Martin's best guard sat out the last game, Guignard.
Yeah.
And so maybe that should actually tilt it more towards Tech, not the other way around.
Tennessee Martin was super unlucky. Like I just mentioned, they lost 2 games in overtime to Tenn Tech. They were 1-5 in overtime this year. But I don't have a strong take on who's winning that game. So nothing there for me. Then Lindenwood is I'm sure they'll be motivated here to play. They want to play fast, but they might be the worst shooting team in the country. For my money, they are. They cannot shoot at all. Horrible half-court offense. Good half-court defense. Bad transition D, but Moorhead won't exploit that, who they play. Moorhead really stumbled down the stretch. Although they had some bad three-point shooting luck. They shot, I think, 26% from 3 in February and gave up 42% shooting, which was kind of overdue. They're not a great shooting team. They play super slow, can't score at the rim. It's all inefficient mid-range. Shocker. Story of this league. Any thoughts on the bottom 4 teams in the OVC?
I spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out Moorhead 5 days ago, like before the weekend. It's like, why have they lost 8 in a row? They got Deontay Miles back, the big Xavier center that has started for them for 2 years now, and it didn't help. Like the 3 games he came back, they still didn't really do much. Then last game of the year, they sit out a couple starters, maybe banged up injuries, and they finally win again against UT Martin. I can't figure out Moorhead State at all. It's been quite a fall from last year with Spradlin to, I'm not sure Maddox has the same juice on the sideline. So I'm staying far away from them.
Any thoughts on Lindenwood? Do you have any takes on Lindenwood?
I watched them a little earlier in the season, sometime in the non-conference, and it's just, like guys putting their head down. Can we get to the rim? Bass and Futrell just want to get to the line because the shooting is like you said, really, really poor from beyond the arc. Not a team I'm overly interested in, though. I just don't think the talent level's all the way where it needs to be, and obviously they've got a tough path starting in the first round and having to win 4 games.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Lindenwood and Moorhead split their meetings, each one on each other's home court. Yeah, I can't get there on any of these teams in the bottom half. To me, I haven't had a great feel for this league all year.
Same.
So I don't have a strong take. Last year, I loved Moorhead. This year, I'll probably throw some on Tennessee State if I can find out Weston is playing. And that's like contest-wise, that's probably be my pick as the 3 seed. What are your final thoughts here?
I'll pick SIU Edwardsville because I think as long as I don't know about Weston yet, Rayshawn Taylor will probably be the best player in the tournament, and he can really go off. He's had 2 different ACL tears at SIUE, so it's kind of nice to see him back fully healthy there. And I like the idea of him going out with a swan song of taking care of business in the postseason and getting Brian Baroni to the NCAA tournament. So I'll pick SIUE. I wish Eastern Illinois had made it because they were actually like playing awesome down the stretch. They won 7 of their last 12. They won 4 in a row to end it, beating Moorhead, Little Rock. They beat SEMO after SEMO clinched, but it was like, wow, okay, Eastern Illinois has actually figured it out, and now unfortunately they're done. But yeah, official pick SIUE.
Yeah, Rayshawn Taylor is awesome, but don't sleep on Brian Taylor too. He can get hot. He can go for like, I don't know, if he's on, he can go for 20, 25.
Yep.
On a night. So yeah, all right, that'll finish up the OVC. Quick summary. Summit. We'll just do one sentence each. We'll go league by league. Summit. Couch change on Denver. I think Omaha's value is the one, catching close to 6-1. North Dakota State, South Dakota State have injury issues. I think Omaha's the value. Sprinkle on Denver has been really good down the stretch. Rare good defense for this league, relatively speaking.
Yep. Yeah. Omaha's the value, the right bet. My pick is St. Thomas. I think they do enact the chaos theory of the team that's ineligible wins the tournament, and Omaha backs in.
Yeah, someone's going to bet Omaha. I hope that they don't play St. Thomas in the final. It would be terrible because they'll already be locked up. NEC, it's chalky. I can't get to the rest of this. Central Connecticut State is so much better than the rest of the league. I think it's priced close to right. Maybe like I'm at -190, -195. So I probably won't bet Central Connecticut State. Jim, you parlayed them.
Yep.
But I can't get there on any of these long shots. I will look at the bet Wagner in the first round against St. Francis. Final thoughts here for you?
Yeah, nothing beyond what you're saying. Just I don't trust any of the bottom half teams. Central Connecticut has far and away separated themselves. This can be a crazy league sometimes. Case in point, Wagner last year. But I'm gonna trust the 1 seed, the best team, Central Connecticut.
Big South. I think we both agree. High Point, the deserved favorite, but I think the value here is on Winthrop. And then we just finished up with the OVC. Jim, I'm going to pick SIUE. I'm going to take a little flyer on Tennessee State, but definitely watching the injuries there. And then we'll look to bet Winthrop against Longwood. Hopefully get a good price there.
Yes,
in
agreed.
The first round. It's a great matchup. All right. That'll do it for us. Quick programming note. What do we have? What you guys did 3 yesterday. We did the ASUN last week. We knocked out 4 today. So we have 24. Well, there's only 31 conferences this year, right? Yeah, 31. So we got 23 to go. We'll cover them starting tomorrow through next Tuesday. Sunday, I'll be doing 3 separate episodes with the guys from 3-man. We will cover a lot of the power leagues. Myself, Mike Calabrese, and Greg Waddell tomorrow. We'll be knocking out 4 more leagues. We're going to be doing, give you guys a quick heads up. We're going to be doing West Coast. I mean, Jim, I'll get your 1 sentence thoughts on these. West Coast, I never bet the West. I think one year I tried to take a flyer. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done.
No, it's Gonzaga or St. Mary's will win
It's just Gonzaga's -130 which is basically just like what Gonzaga is going to be in the championship against St. Mary's. Like,
yeah, which I was,
why even bet it? Just
I
like
thought San Francisco was going to challenge them, but then San Francisco or Gonzaga they did it at the Chase Center instead of on campus, but they spanked them to end the season. So I think Gonzaga will be back in the title game there.
Yeah, I think it's Gonzaga. Same. I think my pick. I think Gonzaga's going to win, but
Same.
I'm not running the bet minus 130. But yeah, San Francisco running like the biggest threats are San Francisco, who was running like a god from three until they last played San Francisco. Teams were shooting 17% in February, 22% since January 1st, and then Santa Clara was on this godlike run from three for a while. They don't match up well with St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's went on like a 30-0 run against them this year. So we're probably going to get, that's the chalkiest league, but we'll talk about that. The Valley, Drake could win it or lose to anybody. Don't go to overtime versus Drake. We'll talk about the SoCon and the CAA. Do you have any hot takes on any of those three?
CAA is parity central. I don't have a super strong. I think the price. I would have picked UNC Wilmington, but the price was pretty strongly there. And I like Bradley in the MVC. Just Drake's tempo leaves them a little bit too exposed to a potential upset, and Bradley won at Drake, so I think they're capable and super veteran team. Coach has won that event before. I like Bradley at Arch Madness.
Well, at least Drake gets to avoid Missouri State on their half of the bracket. Yes. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks to Jim for joining me. Thanks to our producer David on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. And if you're an insider in the OVC or the Big South, you're an alum, you're a booster, and you have injury info, hit us up as always. But thanks for tuning in. It's time to go grind some more conference tournaments, find some winners. It's March. It's the best time of the year. Good luck on all of your wagers. We'll see you later in the week. Cheers.